That's not green.
Oh, no, it's,
I gotta go for green?
yeah, they go to green. I'll take care of it.
Test, Dan.
Going right up.
You just failed it.
It's gonna be one of those ones.
Hey, we're having technical difficulties. This
Like a
is-
big one.
There's ghosts in all of the machines this evening. Forget us.
All right.
I've got it going there.
Okay, so much for my 10 minutes. That was
Well, let's just turn it from now. We don't do duck minutes for the technical difficulties.
okay. I'll try to be quick. I'm going to start off with a map that shows you just how complicated everything is out there. We have a lot of projects going on in this vicinity, so I'm going to actually break it up into north and south to help us out a little bit. I wanted to give you an update tonight of what's going on now, what's going on in the near future, what we just accomplished, and what we hope to achieve over the next few months. As I said, it's fairly busy. Starting up the top, we just finished trimming up some mangroves for view across from the golf course. And just below that, you'll see that we added a new island. That is dredged spoil material that we got at no cost, and we still have some cleanup to do on that one. We're going to put some rock around the edges, but that will actually be the last island that we add to this Snook Island complex, just so you know where we're at with it. Just south of there. Oops.
I'm telling you, there are ghosts in these machines today. Everything.
Nope, right there. All right, thank you. Okay, going south. If you look at the top of that slide, you see Oak Ridge Park. We actually just got the bids back from that project today. They came in under estimate, we're happy to say. So we'll start the construction on that one probably October-ish. Below that, on the east side, Jewel Cove, we've just finished most of the planting. We have some more planting to do, but the volunteer planting project went really well. You'll see that start to fill in over time, but that worked out well. Back over on the western side, we relocated a dock from the original docking facility up at Snook down to the public boat ramp. And south of that is what we're proposing to do in the next 2 phases of the project. So first, before I get into that, here's the site plan for Old Bridge Park. Again, that's a mid-October construction. What we're going to be doing is replacing the seawall along the outside bullnose there, adding a nice dock, floating dock, and just rehabbing that end piece. So it'll still be a good spot to fish, but have the added amenity of having the dock there as well. That's been funded through state appropriation and some funding from Florida Inland Navigation District. So what I wanted to come here specifically to talk about today is what we're proposing to do south of the boat ramp. And that is the peninsula itself and the area along the park to the south. Now we've, over the years, been looking at several configurations of adding new mangrove planter and oyster beds along that section of the wall. We've met with community members several times over and refined the plan to actually, we decreased the number of planters they were proposing and relocated them so that they're more out of the way and away from the view corridors that are naturally used by the population there. So you see that the southernmost planter is opposite the parking lot, and then the ones further north, we've broken them up more and reduced them in size and moved them up further behind some of the trees that are already in the park itself. So these planters, much like what you can see in the artist rendering to the right, they'd be made out of stone, which is good habitat for oysters. We'd be putting some mangroves and spartina in the planters themselves, and maintaining and trimming those, just like we're trimming up at the golf course now. So we'll keep the vegetation low, although we do want to work with residents over time to at least bring on the option of doing some window clearing. That would mean that we'd let the mangroves grow up a little higher and then cut the lower portion of them so that you could see through the mangroves themselves. And provide some more shade for those walking along the boardwalk along there, but that way we'd be able to retain the view going through. But mangroves grow so slowly, we've got plenty of time to work that out. Up along the seawall itself, you'll see the black line that's along there. That's just rock revetment. That's there to protect the seawall itself and also to add more oyster habitat. On the peninsula itself, what we're proposing to do is basically take out what we consider urban riprap. That is the old broken up concrete and other stuff that's kind of littering along the edges of the walkway. Maintaining pretty much all the vegetation that's there except for the exotics, but coming back in and lowering down the elevation of those areas, surrounding them with rock again, planting more mangroves. So we're leaving all of the facilities that are there now, all of the walkway and the docks and the observation areas. We've cut the planters back so that the views from those areas will not be compromised. By reducing the elevation of the planters that are there now, they're going to be intertidal, which means that they're not going to be a great place for people to hang out or anything. It'll be pretty wet that way. But again, that provides more oyster habitat and it provides more mangroves, mangrove habitat as well. And if you go down there, I don't know if you've been down that way recently, but we did do a demonstration of a window trimming on one of the trees that are there. It's actually one of the white mangroves, which has multiple roots or branches coming off of it. But we trimmed down the lower section of it so you can see underneath and still have a canopy there, just to give you an example of what that looks like.
Do you have a picture of that?
I think I do. See, that's Cove. Yep. So here's window trimming in that case. Again, that's a white mangrove, so it has a number of stems. It's not as full of a mangrove as a red mangrove, which is what we're planting in the planters now. They tend to have more of one central trunk coming up and more legs coming off of it, and it's more of a fuller tree canopy once it's trimmed. But that kind of gives you an idea of what window trimming can do. And that's just one option of a way to trim in the future. We could eventually get to the point where we do some window trimming and some that we keep low underneath the height of the existing seawall, alternated, whatever works for people at the time. But it'll be a good 6 to 8 years before we need any trimming there because of the growth rate of the mangroves themselves. That was my quick 10 minutes.
All right, good.
Questions?
Questions?
For questions.
Mr. Rosa?
This particular cutback that you have, or that you're showing,
Yes.
is this something that's going to be planted, or are you planting the other mangrove?
We're going to be planting the other mangroves. We wanted to do this as an example of different ways of maintaining the mangroves over time.
Okay, but the other mangroves are a little bit more aggressive growing and they're fuller?
The red mangrove comes up as a single central core, and it has the legs coming off of it. And then the tree canopy itself is fuller. So this white mangrove you see up there, it's a little more open up top. But what we tried to show in this is that if you just trim off the center portions of these mangroves, you can get a pretty good view through them.
Okay, because our biggest complaint along the golf course, along this area, from the neighbors is the views.
Right.
You know?
And that's why we went back and again maintained that corridor that we had promised years ago to maintain by actually taking out the mangroves in that section and planting more spartina. That's this section along the golf course. So that was high mangroves. We took that down and planted more sparkline. And we're gonna maintain it like that. And these planters that I'm proposing now, we could maintain it like this, or if the residents prefer, we can maintain them at a higher height and provide some canopy and then window cover. So
Yeah.
there's lots of options,
From what I'm hearing, I don't know that the residents want the higher canopy.
which is fine. We've permitted the structures so that we can maintain them low.
Now, the maintenance is something that's going to be an ongoing maintenance, and do we pick the maintenance, or you pick the maintenance? How is, I mean, if a neighbor has an issue with, you know, that it needs to be cut, can that be
They would
addressed? or-
They would contact us.
Okay,
Is 6 feet still the,
Yeah, 6 feet, you're gonna have it just up essentially to the wall of the
It won't be
existing,
higher.
yeah. So we'll keep them generally at the wall height unless someone wants to exercise the option of letting us go higher in window treatment.
and we do a lot of cleanups along the shoreline there.
Mhm.
How does, I know the golf course has open areas where we can actually get in and do cleanup. Once you put mangroves along that entire wall, or most of that wall, is it set back a little bit and maintained a little bit back, or is it right up to the wall? Because we have a lot of problems getting people in there to do the cleanups, you know. It collects a lot of garbage, it collects a lot of cans, you know, unless you're coming in on the water side, which not, a lot of our people are elderly and we can't get in.
The structures themselves will go up right up against the wall, but right now we have an ongoing contract with Lagoon Company, and that's how we maintain the islands themselves, to keep the trash out of there. So they come on a regular basis to all of our different restoration projects. We also do volunteer projects, where we'll bring people in to help us do cleanups. That's the.
Thank you. When this project first started, I'm not an intercoastal resident. I was really excited to see it. It wasn't until I ran for office that I learned that the people who own properties on the intercoastal really had a problem with view and what this project was doing to their view. The work that you're doing in Jewel Cove on the Palm Beach side, are you having any resident issues there? And if you are, how are you addressing them?
In that case, we haven't had resident issues. But there again, that's an area that traditionally never had any kind of a view. And so we, I guess, created a view more than anything else.
and no residents?
There's no
And no
residents.
residents. And again, what we're trying to create over there is kind of a different habitat. We're trying to go for more of a coastal hammock habitat there, so the vegetation is quite different. And it'll fill in, not quite as much as it was before, but it will fill in.
How do you feel this project is going since it started? Is it turning out how you planned?
It is, actually. We have, everything's grown in and held up as we had expected. We are very pleased, especially with some of the migrating birds that have come in and used this. We have birds that are using this on a regular basis now that haven't been seen in Palm Beach County in decades. It's been very popular with the fishermen. There are a couple of commercial guides that are now using this area exclusively. We've had kayak concessionaires that are really happy about what we've created along here and some other places. So overall, we're really pleased with the habitat it created. When we, just before this last couple of years with all the rain we've had, the seagrasses that recruited in this area, one of the seagrasses is called Johnsonite grass. It's an endangered species. And after the 5th year of this project, the Snook Island project, that bed that we created out of that old muck hole, that seagrass bed, was the largest contiguous area of Johnsonite seagrass in existence in the world. And it was created here at this mud hole. So that is the kind of habitat that brings the fish, that brings the birds. And the oysters themselves that come in, we had FAU do a study comparing natural seagrass or natural oyster beds in this surrounding area compared to what we created here. And they found that the oyster beds are more, that we created are as much or more effective than the natural beds that are there. And these are oysters that are filtering up to 50 gallons a day of water. So the more oysters habitat we can create, the more oysters we can get around here, the cleaner we can get this water.
Excellent.
So we're happy.
Thank you. Just lastly, and I know a lot of us have heard it before, but would you mind to talk just briefly about the benefits of mangroves and what they do to the intercoastal?
Sure. Several different things. They are habitat for birds. You'll see it even rookeries they'll create over time for different kinds of birds. We have a lot of, in the root system that they put down, there'll be a habitat for a lot of different snails and other crustaceans that the birds will feed off of. They actually absorb some of the nutrients out of the water, so again, they're cleaning the water that's there. They'll actually contain and hold some of the leafy matter that goes through and decompose that and turn that into richer soil that we can get more growth from different plants around. At one time, Lake Worth Lagoon was almost entirely covered with, surrounded by mangrove habitat. Almost 85% of that is now gone. So anything that we can bring back is going to help the water quality and the habitat.
Thank you very much.
You and I talked, in fact, we actually went out there on the jetty and looked at it. Are you still, so that side area that you were talking about, the rocks and whatnot, and that lower deck, that'll all be addressed?
Yes, we need to talk some more about the deck. I mean, what options we can do with it. But yeah, we would like, I think this would be a good idea.
The sailboat area on the end there?
And the sailboat area, we had.
The Lake Worth Sailing Club?
Yeah, we had an idea of putting, if I get back to that.
Is it that what it is? Lake Worth Yacht Club, sorry.
Putting an offshore breakwater there to help protect that beach and grow it out a bit, and this would be in the south corner of the peninsula. We got some negative feedback from some of the sailors. They're concerned about having to tack out around it. So we want to carry that conversation on some more with them about different options. But we will be maintaining the beach there. We're not going to be putting any rock along that section or anything. So both to the north and south of the peninsula itself will still be maintained as a beach, which would be a good launch spot for the sailboat. And then what we do from there as far as moorings or breakwaters or whatever, we still have to work that out.
Okay, I think one of the most important questions I have for you is, did you meet with the neighborhood associations most affected by this area?
We did, and especially with Herb Robinson, who had been a vocal critic in the past and had a lot of good comments, actually. He was very helpful and helped us craft the final configuration you see here.
So now, the areas in which the plantings are not in direct sightline of the properties. Yeah, I'm, you know guys, I've sat up here many times and I'm all for protecting the environment, but I also know when you buy a property and you see the water, you want to still see the water after we do the plantings here. So I'm just trying to ask the obvious questions here. Are they out of the sightline for people that purchased a home with a view over the water?
Yes.
And it won't be interrupting them?
Right, because that was part of the reconfiguration we did, was to move one of the bigger planters down off of the parking lot itself. And again, by keeping the vegetation low and maintaining it low, we're not really interrupting the sightline at all.
Well, initially you were talking about the windowing effect, and I know that a lot of I spoke with probably about 5 or 6 people in that direct community, and they said no, not at all.
And that's fine. We're just we're going to be able to have options for people in the future, and that's one option.
Okay.
So I just wanted to bring it up. But the plan right now, and what we've got a permit for the state, is to be able to trim them.
To be able to trim them, and you'll take responsibility for that. All right, and again, none of those areas are in the sight lines or affecting people's views from their properties. I want to protect the environmental aspects of it and also the property owners' rights too.
Yeah, they'll be low, so the rocks will be blocked by the wall that's there already.
Vice Mayor?
Thank you. I apologize for being a little tardy and missing the first part of your presentation. I too have concerns about the obstruction of the views, and I'm also concerned about the uncertainty of maintenance. I know that the Snook Island project, there were commitments made by the county to maintain those at a certain point, and the jury's out as to whether or not they were actually maintained in a proper fashion and in real time. Well, did they not exceed the maintenance requirements that we originally committed to?
Actually, the areas that we had cleaned up, there was some that was supposed to be maintained by the city and some by the county. And we have taken care of what was the county.
Well, there's a
commitment.
big uncertainty in my mind's eye going forward about maintenance of mangroves, given all the sensitivity and the environmental regulations that go with that. And I'm asking myself, do I really want to enter into those type of agreement and have to worry about that in the future? Are there alternatives to mangroves to filter the water? And I think the answer is yes, in the seagrass. Is that?
We planted Spartina before in these, and we can do so before. We have had pretty mixed luck with them. They're pretty tough to maintain over time. Usually, they end up getting crowded out by mangroves. The mangroves find their way in there and start growing on their own. We could certainly start off by planting them again. We've had some actually pretty good luck with them on Ibis across the way, where we did plant Spartina. Part of it got taken over by mangroves, but some of the Spartina, especially this year, came back very strong. So we could start off with Spartina.
Could you explain to a layperson such as myself how that would happen if there's no mangroves in the immediate area? Is this a function of the wind blowing?
Essentially, what happens is the seeds from the mangroves, these long, thin seeds you've probably seen before, they'll drop into the water and they'll float around and they'll try to find some niche to hook onto. They can actually wedge themselves in between rocks and find a foothold and start to grow. The planter that we put in, I guess it's almost 2 years ago now, up near the bridge, but on the south side of the bridge, that one was planted with Spartina, and got a couple other plants that were put in there. Mangroves have been showing up there ever since, just to give you an example. But it's the same kind of thing, it's a maintenance thing. You can always go pull those out. In fact, we pulled some up out of the other plants for the other day.
Okay. So at the end of the day, and again, I apologize for being late, what is the ultimate ask? What is the decision that you're looking for from the commission going forward?
Looking for approval to build what we have permits and funding for along the peninsula and along the southern portion of the park, with the stipulation that we will maintain the mangroves at the level of the seawall.
It has to be mangroves, it can't be a seagrass, you can't.
So we can put Spartina in, but just fair warning that it may change over time.
Well, that's you answered my questions, thank you.
Real quick, can you speak to the quality of the water? I know we had a recent algae bloom, did a little bit coming into shore, but it seems like it's clearer. I've seen a lot of manatees out there this week. Can you talk to the quality at this point?
Sure. The inflows down the C-51 from Lake Okeechobee have increased fairly dramatically. The Corps and the district decided to reduce flows into St. Lucie and Caloosahatchee because of what was happening up there. And so they increased the flow in C-51. So as of this morning, something like 750 cubic feet per second was coming down to LA into the C-51. When the first algae bloom started showing up, we actually put our drone up in the air and we chased that bloom, find out where it's coming from, and yes, it led us directly back to Lake Okeechobee. So we actually have video footage that shows that. Water quality in the lake right now is poor. There's very high nutrients in Lake Okeechobee. So that water coming down, of course, is making the lagoon fairly high in nutrients. With that, though, that algae actually hasn't been blooming of late. It's calmed down some. So the last tests we had done were on the 8th. They came back negative for any kind of toxins. So it's still not as good as it could be.
Thank you.
Is there any information available on the effectiveness of using Spartina versus mangroves?
It would be hard to actually quantify it. We're working at a pretty small scale here. They both have their ecological advantage.
Could you get a little closer to the microphone? I'm sorry. Thank you.
So they both have their ecological advantages. Obviously, as far as bird habitat goes, the mangroves would be better, but the spartina itself, they too can absorb nutrients, so that's also positive for the lagoon.
Are both native to this part of Palm Beach County?
Yes, they are.
Thank you.
Commissioner Mercer?
I have, you know, I was part of the original mango issue that we had with the golf course where, you know, we had a maintenance contract, no one could find it, it hadn't been done for years, all that. And thank you, you know, we've cleaned that up and we fixed that. So I'm okay with the mangroves moving forward as long as you are telling us that we have a maintenance program and that the concerns of the neighbors, which is visibility, has been addressed.
Yes, we're ready to commit to maintenance.
The height of the wall.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Height of the wall.
Any other, Vice Mayor, anything else? All right, well, thank you very much, I appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right.